Welcome to the art and science of difficult conversations. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lucie, and we love having difficult conversations.
That's right. And each week we'll either share a tip, hear how others have gotten better at difficult conversations, or demonstrate common difficult conversations and what to do and what not to do.
Let's get into it.
All right. Welcome, everybody. And you're going to hear somebody that you don't normally hear. Lucie, welcome to interviewing with me.
Thank you. It's joy to be here.
Yeah. And Lucie, this is something I've never told you yet. Uh, I guess we haven't known each other that long anyway, but did you know that I actually have a little bit of a body dysmorphia?
No, I did not know that.
So I grew up very super skinny. Like when I went to college, I was under 100 pounds when I entered
Wow.
college. And so ever since then, and I was turned away from giving blood actually because I had way too little. So I always will remember that for the rest of my life because now I constantly am always exercising, trying to gain weight, and I'll never stop until whatever because I look in the mirror and I still see, I'm a little skinny kid. No matter who I stand next to, I always see everybody else is looking bigger than me. So that's why I'm excited that we actually have a guest today that is talking about that because this is an important topic for men and for women, for everybody on the spectrum, because I think it's infects every part of our life. So I just want to welcome Laura Conley. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Chris. And hi, Lucie. I'm so excited to
Hey.
be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's such a treat to be here.
And I won't introduce you because I want you to share kind of
Yeah,
who are you? How did you get here? Tell us your
yeah,
story.
totally. So I live right outside of Boulder, Colorado, with my 6-year-old daughter, Luna, and a 4-year-old son, Phoenix, and my 41-year-old husband, who actually has a similar story to you, Chris, which I think is interesting
Mm,
because I think in this space of this our culture and wanting to look a certain way, oftentimes it's just a conversation for women, and I go against the grain because I think that men, although maybe quieter, um, suffer too. So
mm,
I very much want to change the legacy around body image and relationship with self and food, for my daughter, but also for my son, because I think we're all affected and we're all being held to this standard that is just impossible.
mm.
So, I can tell a little bit about my story and how I came to coach on this. So I was we'll just get super vulnerable right off the bat.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's do it.
Thank you.
I'm 6 weeks postpartum. I had just had my daughter Luna, and I was getting out of the shower, and I was leaning over, butt naked, toweling off, and I caught myself beating myself up. I was berating myself for not being back in my pre-baby jeans, for not being able to bounce back like I had seen so and so on Instagram do. And in that moment, I sort of had a like come to Jesus or like out of body moment. And I was like, this stops now. Because if it doesn't, I'm going to pass this on to my daughter, my 6-week old, like perfect
Mm,
baby. And I'm so glad I had that kind of out of body, like this stops here, because it would have just continued. And I bet you anything I would have been able to say the right things to her around food and body, but I knew at some level, on some level in that moment, that she would still inherit my screwed up relationship with food and my body and my self image and my worth and all of that if I didn't heal it at the root, because I knew she would catch me looking at myself in the mirror and see that look of disapproval, or she would notice me change my outfit 16 times, or she would overhear me complaining to my husband, or maybe shying away from my husband when he like tried to grab my waist. I knew she would pick up on it. I think these children of ours are so smart, right? And it's
mm,
not just
mm.
about what we say to them, it's how we're behaving, right? It's monkey see, monkey do. And so in that moment, I was convicted and I knew I had to heal this at the root once and for all. Prior to that, I had sort of just accepted defeat. I was sort of just like, you know what? This is just going to be my thing. I'm just always going to struggle. I'm always going to be gaining weight or losing weight. I'm always going to be on a green juice cleanse and then eating an entire pizza the
Mm,
next weekend, right? And I sort of just had like thrown my arms up. And then when I had her, I'm like, you know what? There has to be a way. There has to be a way for me to love myself unconditionally and love my body unconditionally and have a healthy relationship with food, not always be starving or binging. And in that moment as well, um, I was also like, which this kind of sounds not where I was going, but I'm like, but I want to have it all. I still want to weigh what I want to weigh,
yeah.
and have a healthy relationship. And I think that that is a really interesting conversation actually, because a lot of women will come to me and they'll ask the question like, should I just love and accept my body as is, or should I lose the weight? And I'm like, it's not an either or. In fact,
Mm,
it's and in both. You actually get to have it all, and actually can't lose weight permanently unless you really learn to love yourself at the root. So I went on this big healing journey, finally cracked the code after decades of trying and failing. And I sort of had the same moment when I really healed it. And it's still a daily practice for me. Like don't get me wrong. I still work on my relationship with myself and my body and food every single day for like 5 minutes. It's not a big
hmm
practice. It's like brushing your teeth at this point. Um, but I had that same kind of out of body experience once I healed it. I was like, oh my God. It was almost I was almost scared because I was like, this is the one thing I thought I couldn't do. So I guess if I could do this, I could do anything. And I have to now do this for all the other women out there and men through our boys.
mm,
I actually
hmm
don't coach men, but through our children, right? So I went on this like maniacal mission, and I'm still on it, to really free the moms and free the women from this trap that we all seem to be in, and not because anything is wrong or bad with us. It's just because it's like the air we breathe. It's the culture we're in, that just
Yeah.
that says you're not good unless you weigh this, or you're not valuable unless you look like this. So I don't know if that answered your question. It was kind of long-winded, but
No, that was great. I love that. That's so insightful of you to recognize that your daughter would pick up on those little mini cues of not even the verbal things of what you say, but just the either changing outfits multiple times or that turning away. Did
yeah.
you always grow up with that kind of attunement to how kids view the world and seeing what parents do, or was that something you just thought of in the moment?
I think I think my mom like knew all the right things to do and say. And actually, my mom was amazing in terms of her relationship with her body and food.
Hmm.
But with her relationship with herself, I don't think she had a strong relationship with herself. And I do think she said all the right things to me. But because she is still on this journey of finding that unconditional self-love and that self-worth, I think I inherited part of it. And that's not to blame her at all, right?
Sure,
We're all on
sure.
our own unique personal development paths. It really isn't. I really think she's like the perfect mom of all the moms out there. But that also goes to show, like, even if you do it quote unquote perfectly, which we can't do motherhood or fatherhood perfectly, but even if you can get really close, our kids are still going to get stuff from our culture. And so I think it's our job as parents to, you know, be there for them. I actually don't know, Chris, exactly where I got the inkling that our kids are smarter than we think that they are.
Hmm.
Maybe I picked it up from my parents. I also, and this is now I've been a parent, I mean, still only 6.5 years, but my kids do, they pick up on things. And I often hear the quote, your children's inner voices are your are the or let me rephrase that. The way that we speak to our children becomes their inner voices. And I'm like, the
Mm.
way we speak to ourselves becomes their inner voices. We don't even have to say some of the things out loud, and it'll become their inner voices. So I don't know exactly where I got that, but I know these kids are smart, and they're so much beyond language, right? Body
Yeah,
language
yeah.
communicates so much more than just the spoken word. So and maybe it was like, I don't know, from the universe. Again, it was sort of like this out of body like download moment.
Yeah. Is it like the movies where it sounds like it's just like a movie scene, right? Where like the light just suddenly shines in, suddenly your whole world unfolds and changes from that moment.
There's the
It
music.
it sort of
Typically
feels like that. And I'm like, did it feel like that in the moment? Or have I told this story so many times now
Mm.
that it's
Yeah.
like
getting better and better.
becoming a movie? It's becoming a, yeah, like adding more details. The bathroom's starting to look a little bit more glamorous. No, I'm just kidding.
So, how old were you, or do you remember how old you were when you first started caring about, dieting and or your body image?
Yeah. For me, it was right around like eighth, ninth grade. So high school, I started caring about like what size jeans I was wearing, what I
Mm.
was eating. Like I made the correlation, obviously. And that's when I started, it's like a little embarrassing, but I think everyone can relate. So I'm willing to say it. I mean, I'm an open
Sure.
book when it comes to this stuff. But that's when I started like really restricting. And I would have like contests with my friends on like who could eat the smallest lunch and who could have the
Mm.
least calories and who could be the tiniest for the spring break or whatever. I mean, it was sick, like the behaviors that we were practicing, but it was so normalized. So yeah, I really think at that time I got the messaging that smaller was better.
Mm.
Smaller was good. Skinny was approved, right? And it wasn't an overt message. Nobody like came up to me and was like, if you weigh this amount or you fit into a size 2 or 0, then that means you're good, right? No one
Yeah.
said it
Yeah.
out loud, but it's in the bazillions of images that we see of, I was growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, and it's like that was the time of, the Victoria's Secret models and
Mm.
the Kate Mosses, and that was a beauty standard. And I don't think, no one told me, any differently. So I just sort of, like I said at the beginning, it's kind of like the air that we breathe. It's these messages that we get, and
Mm.
they're seared into your mind. So, so it was then that the dieting started to take over, and it wasn't, and I kind of controlled it throughout high school, and then I remember going to college and I gained exactly the freshman 15. And from
Mm.
there, I gained and lost that 15 pounds probably 20 times until I had my daughter. And I was like, this stops here. And I still fluctuate now, but there's no drama. There's no self-hatred that's attached to it. There's no juice cleanse that comes along with it. There's just me eating food for fuel most of the
Yeah.
time. So that's so freeing in and of itself. But that's kind of the short version. It's like after college, I was always the girl, right? Like in my group of friends, I was always the girl that was trying keto or that was trying to get her friends to do some sort
Mm.
of challenge where we did 2-a-days at the gym or you name it, I did it.
It seems like your love for your children, for your daughter at the time, actually allowed you to also have love for yourself or kind of open the doors for really loving yourself through
Mm,
that love for your daughter.
yeah, that could really make me cry. Yeah, it's so true. She's like my muse. And I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, if there was a magic pill, I wouldn't want to give it to you. I mean, there kind of is a magic pill now with all the semaglutide and Ozempics. I don't really think it's a
True.
magic pill because unless you're on it forever, it's going to come back. It's not a permanent solution. I don't have big judgments, but I do think it needs to be paired with things like mindfulness and mindset change and emotional intelligence and all of this. But I never want to give my clients, and I never would wanted to have given my past self, even though I desperately wanted it, a magic pill because of the healing that I went through in order to really learn to love myself, right? Like it's the weight loss was just a byproduct. Like the self-love is the best gift. The way that and when I say
Mm.
self-love, I feel like that's a kind of a nebulous term and people it's like what is that? It's just really just the way that I treat myself, like the habits that I perform, the way that I talk to myself in my head. is just so like nice. It's so loving. It's so kind. And
Mm.
without the weight loss or that kind of barrier, I wouldn't have been able to give myself that gift. And I had coaches and teachers and mentors throughout my healing process too. So it wasn't just me.
Talk to us about, after that epiphany, what was that process? Because I'm sure, like, even though your motivations changed and
Yes.
became crystal clear, I'm sure it wasn't like the next day everything was all healed.
Nope, wasn't a magic pill. You're right. Yeah. So at the time, I had a coach who is still like my favorite coach ever called Brooke Castillo. And she came out with a weight loss coaching certification at the time. And I went through that because I trusted her. I had already used so many of her tools in my coaching practice. At the time, I wasn't trying to lose weight because I was pregnant and then just
Mm.
very newly postpartum. But I was like, you know what? She is so good with everything else that she's taught me, everything else that I've learned from her. She has an amazing podcast. Um, Everything I learned and implement, like it works. So I did her certification and then I paired a lot of that with mindfulness meditation and yoga philosophy because
Mm.
that was part of my background. At the time I was already a coach. I had been a coach at that time for 6 years and it was already a yoga teacher. So I kind of, this is the Cliff Notes version, but I kind of married the two. So Brooke had a lot of the mindset stuff that she passed on to me, and a lot of the stuff that I do with hunger hormones and like the biological stuff from the weight loss certification. And then I paired, I mean, still mindfulness stuff from the
Hmm.
yoga, and then also just the ability to, a huge part of my practice and the huge part of the healing was like learning to feel feelings because I never
Mm.
actually identified as somebody who like overate a lot of the time, but I was eating my emotions and I didn't realize that. So a lot of times when we don't weigh what we want to weigh, it's because we're using food for what it's not for. Like boredom. Like I was the girl that was always visiting my coworker's desk because she had M&Ms, right? I'm just bored at
Mm.
2:30, so I grab a handful. Oh, that'll be a pick me up. Or the party isn't that fun, so I know I'll go hang out with the chips and guac to make it more fun.
Mm.
Anytime you're using food, and it's anytime you're trying to solve something that's not hunger, it's not going to work, right? If hunger is not the problem, food isn't the solution. It doesn't
Right.
mean that there can't, like, and I also want to say, just to be like really loud and clear, it's not bad to eat for emotional reasons. It's not bad or wrong to eat for emotional reasons. It's not heroin, right? Like it's actually not the
Right.
worst band-aid. Like so we don't need to make ourselves bad or wrong if we do notice, oh, you know what? I'm not hungry and I'm eating. Instead, can we like be curious? Can we be like, huh, what am I looking for? What do I need? How can I take care of myself in this moment? So a lot of
Mm.
that emotional, like I call it like emotional intelligence. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of your listeners, and I know you guys are very emotionally intelligent. It's like, but we can level it up when it comes to food and we can actually like learn to have our own back and learn how to feel because a lot of my moms, right, end of the day, they're looking for a reward after a grueling day at the office and then their 2 and 4 year old having temper tantrums all night long, right?
Mm.
It's like how can we reward that mama without using the goldfish because that's actually not going to give her a sustained reward. It's actually going to give her a net negative when she wakes up and she has like the carb or sugar hangover from the, whatever. So it's like
Mm.
how can we give ourselves what we really need in a way that is true self-care, right? Like in a way that has a net neutral or a net positive. So I think that's been a huge healing for me and my clients is like most of us in our culture are emotional eaters. Again, it's not a problem
Mm.
until it's a problem
Yeah.
and you want to solve it. And that's been like really eye-opening for me. It's like, oh, I don't have to solve this boredom with a snack, or oh, I don't have to de-stress with ice cream. There's other ways to do it that are healthier and that serve me. And again, they're not bad or wrong. My husband he'll emotionally eat. Like I'll watch him. I'm like, oh, he just had the most stressful day, and he's like downing a bag of chips. But you know what? He's so healthy. He feels great in his body. It's not a problem. But for me and my clients, I didn't feel good in my body. And that's where, when I was saying at the beginning, oftentimes people ask me, like, if I want to lose weight, is that me not loving my body? And I'll be like, maybe, but maybe not. Like, I felt so much shame living in LA and being a yoga teacher because number one, being a yoga teacher in LA means you're supposed to be in quotes, right, from our culture. You're supposed to be waif thin, but
Yeah.
you're also not supposed to want to lose weight because you're supposed to be really evolved and you're supposed to just love yourself and accept yourself. So it's like two conflicting, it's like the Barbie monologue, right? It's like two
Yeah.
conflicting messages. Like, you have to be thin, but you can't want to be thin. And so I was smushing that down. I was ignoring this desire. I had this extra weight on me, and I had this desire inside to lose the extra weight, but I couldn't let myself see that desire because that made me bad and wrong for even wanting it. And then finally, when I just freaking admitted it to myself, it was like I was listening to myself. And that was actually an act of love, not an act
Mm.
of, you know, following diet culture. The reason I had that extra weight on my body was because I was doing things that weren't loving.
Mm.
I was stuffing my face with food when I wasn't hungry instead of loving myself through. I was escaping my life. I was avoiding my life instead of like actually sitting down and being honest with myself. So it's kind of ironic too, right? Like I put that extra weight on by acts of non-love, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I digress a little bit, but I do think it's important for listeners to know that like
Mm.
it's okay to want to lose weight if you want to lose weight for the right reasons. And sometimes we don't even know if the reasons are right. I'll get clients all the time and they'll be like, I don't know if this reason is vain or not. I'm like, it's okay. Just use it for now. The work we're going to do over 6 months is going to be deep work, anyways, and you're going to find reasons that are true and aligned, right? For me, I just want to weigh what I want to weigh because I feel really good in my body and I could be present with my kids and contribute to the
Mm.
world in a meaningful way when I'm not so distracted by how am I going to do a second workout later today because I just totally overate that second half of that sandwich or whatever the thing is, or I had a huge bowl of pasta last night. I got to get in 10,000 extra steps today to punish myself to work it off. And then I'm not present for this podcast interview or going sledding with my kids. I don't even want to go sledding with my kids because I don't want to put my snow pants on. It's just like
Mm.
all of that drama is erased.
I
Like,
love what you're I love a lot what you said because it's very similar to how we even teach people that have other difficult conversations. It's
yeah,
about our mindset about how we approach it, getting comfortable with feelings, understanding what's
that's
driving us to
huge.
feel frustrated or anxious about it. What
That is, that's huge.
what do you think was like the most helpful mindset change for you in getting comfortable and loving yourself?
Mm. Ooh, okay. I want to go down that difficult conversation tangent so bad, but I
Yeah.
will answer your question, I promise. Okay, so I think it's having my own back. Now, what does that mean? So I think we're taught when we make a mistake, like say I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna have processed sugar because it doesn't feel good in my body and I can't weigh what I want to weigh if I eat processed sugar most of the time. Now, I still have treats here and there. I don't eat cupcakes every day all day, but I will plan for a cupcake, have a cupcake, whatever. So, my clients will come in and this was me too, and they will think, "Okay, I say I'm not going to have processed sugar." And then they have it, and then they think that there's two options. They either beat the crap out of themselves because they had the cupcake when they said they weren't going to have the cupcake, or they put their head in they put their head in the sand and they just
Mhm.
ignore it completely. We're
Mm.
not taught the third option. And this has been the biggest mindset shift for me. I call it now, I've named it. It's called Look Back with Love. Hey, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. Hey, Laura, what just happened there? You said you weren't going to have the cupcake. Why did you have the cupcake? What was going on for you? Was
Mm.
it like an unwillingness to be uncomfortable? Were you really stressed out? Did you not want to have a difficult conversation with somebody and say no, thank you, even though they made you the special
Mm.
gluten-free cupcake, right? Like, what was going on? And that third option is huge because if you can get curious about what just happened, you have a hidden treasure that you've just found and you've learned something about yourself and you can apply it to the next time. Because inevitably, there's going to be another cupcake that comes up on a day that you're very stressed or on a day that you're very bored. Or inevitably, your mother in law is going to cook you the sugar free blah, 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 and be like, come on, take a bite. Right. And so it's like looking back, understanding why you did the thing that you did, but from a place with love. That's why it's called Look Back with Love. And it is challenging because so many of us are trained to shame the crap out of ourselves when we made a
Mm.
mistake. But we don't have to make our mistakes mean anything about who we are as a person, about our worth, or about our value. No, it's just a mistake. Imagine if you were learning to ski or to golf or to play pickleball and you made a mistake. Would you
Yeah.
make it mean anything about you? No. I always use the example of my daughter, and I have like a million skiing analogies, but my daughter was learning to ride a bike. She's riding her bike. She looks up, she sees a bird. She keeps looking at the bird, falls into the bush, gets up, she's kind of crying. She's like, "What happened, Mom? What happened?" I'm like, "You looked up at the bird and you kept watching the bird." I'm like, "Next time you see the bird, look up and then look right back at the sidewalk." She's like, "Oh, okay." She doesn't beat the crap out of herself. She doesn't ignore it. Like she doesn't throw in the towel. Now she might for a day and then come back to it the next day. You know, if you've
Sure,
got kids,
sure.
you get that too. And that's okay too. But she wasn't attaching it to her sense of self. And that's what I want to offer the world when you have something that's so important to you that you want to change, whether that's your body or your weight or you yelling at your kids or something with your career, whatever. Don't make it mean anything about you. Instead, can you find that buried treasure and then apply it to next time? And you won't do it perfectly. I think that's another huge learning is like releasing the perfectionistic tendencies I didn't even really knew I
Mm.
had. It's like, no, we're all going to make mistakes. We're supposed to make mistakes. Can we learn from the mistakes and not make them mean anything? That's an example right there of self-love. And then use it to just do a little bit better. Just do 1% better next time and then keep going.
Mm.
Mm. Well, it seems like also your conversation, your own difficult conversations changed the way that you speak to yourself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's what I try to help my clients with too. And I still work on it with myself, right? It's like we're taught when we make a mistake that you either beat yourself up or you put your head in the sand and you ignore it. Sometimes people will call this giving myself grace. I don't think it's grace because you're ignoring yourself. Grace is that
Mm.
look back with
Mm.
love and going and learning from it and being really gentle and graceful, actually. But don't ignore it because you're missing the buried treasure. And we're not taught to look back at our mistakes and learn from them. A lot of us aren't, some of us are, but and it
Yeah.
depends sort of on the circumstance. Like when it comes to weight loss, we're taught to beat ourselves up. When it comes to riding a bike, we're taught to learn from it. So
Hmm. Just like difficult conversations, don't ignore them.
yeah. Oh yeah. So but the difficult conversations, I
Yeah.
have to tell you, Chris. So I have this theory that we're all kind of walking around, not all of us, but some of us are walking around with like 15 extra people pleasing pounds because we don't want to say no to our guests. I just had a client actually. She's like,
Mm.
oh, I just got through my birthday week. And I had to have a bite of this and I had to have a bite of this because I had to be polite. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, that client actually can do that and weigh what she wants. Now, some of my clients can't have a bite of that and they can't have a bite of that and they can't have a bite of that all week long and weigh what they want. It just depends on the client and the person. But what I really teach my clients to do is to say no with a period.
Mm.
And they love it because they can apply it to so many other areas. It's like you have to be willing to disappoint other people in order to appoint your future self. Like if you really want to appoint this best version of yourself who weighs what she wants, who's confident, who wakes up feeling light and alive and excited to get dressed for the day, be present with her kids and whatever, you have to be willing to disappoint other people in order to appoint your future self. And to both of your points, that's going to mean feeling some vibrations inside your body and like,
Mm.
wow. That's a lot of the work that we do inside my program. It's just learning how to feel. Another skill we weren't taught growing up. At
Wow,
least I
that's so
wasn't.
cool. And also, I can't tell you, you just blew my mind. I never thought to break apart the word disappoint into two words before.
Well, I'm always trying to think of catchy things so I can get my clients to remember stuff. I think I actually still think that that could use some improvement, like disappoint other people in order to appoint yourself, but we'll go with it for now.
I mean, that's great. It blew my mind. I was like,
That's pretty
I've never even
awesome.
thought of
Yeah,
breaking that word before.
me either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of my clients have learned to have these difficult conversations because it's so normalized in our culture
Yeah.
to eat the piece of cake at a birthday party. It's like people are like, "Why aren't you having the cake?" It's like, "Why are you having the cake?" Like, I'm not suggesting you say that, but it's like it's totally appropriate to be like, "Why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you having a drink? Why aren't you having cake?" It's like, well, number one, it's none of your business, and number two, it's like you could say anything. And I actually do teach my clients like no is a complete sentence, but it might
Mm,
be helpful for you to pre-plan what you're going to say just so you have it practiced and ready to go and so that you can feel comfortable knowing that people might question you and
yeah.
yeah, and that you might have a vibration in your body
Yeah.
that doesn't feel
Yeah.
good. But it's like, you know, I think you really do build the muscles the more reps you get in. Like now, if I want to say no thank you to something, it's like, it's no big deal. It's no skin off my back. I don't even really notice anymore because I'm so practiced. And actually, most people don't really care.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Uh, You've given us so much to think about. I'm wondering what are 1 to 2 takeaways you have for somebody listening that's still in this journey that's just started. Like, what are 1 to 2 takeaways from your own journey
Yeah.
to the self love and this new
Yeah.
phase of your life?
Yeah. I mean, I think we touched on some of them. One, like, just if you are going through a weight loss journey or you are exploring losing weight, just like being honest with yourself, like, do you want to or not? And just
Mm,
making a decision because like for me I was just always like in this decision drama, or I should call it like indecision drama, right? I was always like kind of back and forth, like am I doing it, am I not doing it? Like decide and have your own back. And then one
sure.
really fun one is see if you want to lose like excess fat on your body, see if you can only eat when you're hungry or somewhat hungry, and then stop when you're sated or satiated, not when you're totally full. Just test it without beating yourself up. And then, if you do notice that you eat when you're not hungry, don't beat yourself up. Don't put your head in the sand. Get curious, like what was going on for me. You'll learn so much about yourself, and
Mm.
you'll be able to develop a really cool relationship with yourself, and find out so many patterns and habits about who you are.
What comes up for me also, you're asking a lot of questions when you are talking about how you are speaking with yourself. So
Mm,
just like with Chris, we talked about how to have a conversation, show empathy for the other, actually be curious rather than judgmental. So it
mm,
sounds like you're also doing that yourself, kind of at
yes.
checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? What am I needing right now? That
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to fill that need with the food, let's say. Am I
Yes.
bored? Am I really hungry? Or am I just
Yeah.
stressed out?
Yes. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I think asking powerful questions is it's such an easy way to shift. My old rhetoric used to be like, "What's wrong with you? Like, get it together. Why can't you ever?" And it was still questions, but they weren't powerful ones, right? Like,
Right.
why can't you
We're
ever
more
get it together?
judgmental questions.
Yes, judgmental questions. Yeah, so it's just can you shift the judgment into the curiosity, like you're saying?
Hmm.
It's like can I mean another fun takeaway is like, can you put your self-talk through the filter of would I talk to this way to like a best friend that you like really like?
Mm.
Uh,
I like that qualifier.
would I speak? And then and again, if you speak to yourself in a way that you wouldn't speak to a best friend, don't beat yourself up for that either. Just be like, oh, this is
Mm.
such good news. I'm so glad I figured out that I do this so I can change it. Can't change anything without awareness.
So I had one question that I wanted to ask around difficult conversations with your family members about your journey, about your weight loss or struggle with food. Was it easy to talk with your mom maybe around that or anybody else?
Yeah.
How was it for you?
Okay, so I think there's two types of people when it comes to like diet drama. There's the type that was like me, who was like kind of loud about it and like overt, and like I would like publicly shame myself and like self-deprecate and like tell everybody they have to go on a diet with me, right? And then there's the other type who like is suffering in silence. And so I think for the most part, my family is just like happy for me that like I finally freaking am over this. I think at the beginning they were a little bit like, oh, God, this again, like really we're gonna do this. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And so you don't have to tell anybody that you're doing anything. A lot of people think they have to make these big announcements. You don't have to. You totally can. Here's the thing that I always tell my clients. Why are you doing what you are doing? Okay? Like say you come into my program or whatever. Say you follow my method. It's called the Yummy Mummy method. Super cheesy, I know. But say you follow the Yummy Mummy method or you're doing the Yummy Mummy experience. Why are you doing it? My guess is you're not doing it to earn or to be skinny or to earn your value. You're probably doing it because you want to lose some extra fat so that you can cut the noise out and be present with your kids. Or so that when your kids ask you to go down the water slide at the pool this summer, you say yes unequivocally, or you're the one suggesting it. You probably have a really solid why behind what you're doing. And if you can connect to that, sharing that with your family, like, hey, you know what? This has been a big struggle. I think I finally found the answer. And I'm really doing this because I want to be healthy and I want to dance with my grandkids at their wedding, right? If you can connect to that, nobody is going to argue with that. If you're like, oh yeah, I'm just on another diet because I have to like earn my approval, right? Or I have to be skinny or I have to get into those size jeans, right? Some people might come up against that, but when you know why you're doing what you're doing and you're convicted about it, no one can touch you. And that is a little bit of a practice, I do think, but like connecting, why are you doing it? And then if you're willing to share that with your people, most people are going to get on board like that. They're going to be like, can I join you? Tell me more about it. But you do have permission to not share at all. Like I get clients that are like, I don't want to share until I'm in for 6 months, right? And that's okay too. I want to just like kind of give permission. Now, the other thing I would love to just share a little bit is a lot of my mamas want to know, well, how do I talk to my kids about this? Like, for example, and it's going back to your why. So a lot of the days of the week, I will practice intermittent fasting. Some of the days I won't intermittent fast, and like before my cycle, I won't intermittent fast sometimes. But my daughter will ask me like, "Oh, mom, like why aren't you having breakfast?" And it's not because I'm trying to be skinny. It's because most of the time I'm not hungry for breakfast. I was always like growing up, never ate breakfast. Like breakfast, it actually just makes me feel really heavy. When I found intermittent fasting, I was like, oh my God, where has this been? I got pregnant with my second kid and they're like, you can't intermittent fast. And I was like devastated. I mean, I'm kind of being dramatic, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love intermittent fasting because I get so energized from it. It just works for my body. And so when my daughter asks me that, I'm like, I'm not being like, well, I got to fit into the dress this weekend. I'm like, you know what? It just really, I'm not hungry. And I don't like to eat when I'm not hungry because it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good in my body. Or she asked me the other day, she's like, Mom, how come you're not having any bread? Gluten doesn't feel good in my body. And so I just told her, I was like, gluten, it's an ingredient in bread. It doesn't agree with me. And that's the truth. It's so fascinating. It's so interesting. It's like if we could just get down to the truth and kind of peel away um, some of that diet drama and really connect to why we're doing what we're doing, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's actually a great gift that we can give our children, right? I think it's so conflated, the diet drama
Yeah.
and how we should parent around all of this. And it's like, what I like to teach my kids is like, let's eat when you're hungry and stop when you're satiated, right? And the test for that, I'm like, I don't like being really full because I can't play with my kids, or I don't want to clean the kitchen. I don't want to do the next thing of my life. It's like I want to be able to take a walk around the block after I eat, or dance with my kids.
Mm,
Like my daughter
yeah.
asked me last night, "Hey, will you get up and dance with me?" And I was like, yes, because I could, because I didn't overeat. And I really think, that's part of the point of life is dancing with your kids, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I won't tell my daughter that phrase because then she'll say that about broccoli. The broccoli doesn't agree with my body.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Doesn't agree with my
Sorry,
mind.
Dad. The
No
carrots
broccoli.
don't agree with my body.
It's so true. It's so, yeah, I know. My daughter will be like, well, well, then the only thing that agrees with me is ice cream.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
Laura, I loved what you said about having your why because I see a lot of parallels with when I do career coaching because that's a lot of people get stuck on the what job will I have or what role, what title will I have. And
Mhm.
it's much more powerful when they can figure out why do I want to work or what impact do I want to have or what's my purpose. And once they figure that out, then it opens up the entire world of beyond industry, beyond job title is what do I want to be doing with my days and what's my purpose?
Yes, it's so good because the other is just superficial and it won't get
Yeah,
you anywhere. So you get the title and then so what? Or you wait
right.
or you get into a size 2 and then so what? If you don't feel
Yeah.
good in your body, you'll just keep chasing, right? Or you get the title and keep chasing until you really connect to that. Yeah, I think that's such a good parallel for sure.
Laura, I could speak to you for hours about this. I love this topic and I'd love to ask you just your thoughts on every single diet fad out there. We could just talk for hours. I would love to just explore that. Um, but I'm sure you have other things to do, and I'm sure our listeners have other things to do with their life. But I know some of them are interested in following you, catching up with you. You have your own podcast that gives is a tongue twister for me, so I'm not even gonna try to say it 'cause I have a hard time saying it out loud.
Yeah,
But where can people
my
find you? Where can people connect with you and work with
yeah,
you?
for sure. My clients are like, we're not saying the yummy mummy out loud. That is ridiculous. We're calling it the YM. I'm like, okay, do whatever you want. So you can listen to my podcast called the Yummy Mummy Podcast with Laura Conley. That's LauraConley. We will also, if you guys will throw it in your show notes, we'll give you guys a
Mhm.
free guide. It's called the Perfect Weight Loss PDF. And it's almost like an ebook, and it will teach you how to get started. So it's kind of like a kickstart if you do want to lose some extra fat. If you follow it to a T, you'll do like about, depending on how much weight you have to lose, about 10 pounds in 30 days.
Wow.
But again, it's from a place of self-love, not a place of punishment, which is very diet culture-y.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll give you guys that link. It's usually $37 and your listeners can get that for free. You can go to lauraconley.com if you're interested in working with me. I run the Yummy Mummy Experience, which is a 6-month program. It guarantees that you lose weight. So you either lose weight or your money back. And
Mm.
we do that through hunger hormone balance. We do that through, like I said, mindset, emotional intelligence, daily accountability, and self love. Becoming your own bestie is what I call it. So you can check that out at lauraconley.com. And then I'm on Instagram at Laura Conley Coaching. So I think that's it. I think that's the spiel.
Nice. We'll put
Fantastic.
all that in the
In
description
the
so
show
everybody can
notes.
follow you and link and get that ebook. I think that'd be a cool resource.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much for
Um,
sharing that.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you guys for hours and hours. You guys are just so lovely, so warm.
Thank
Right
you.
back at
Thank you.
you.
Yeah, we loved having you on here. Hopefully we can have you
Yeah.
back again in the future. We
Yeah,
have a
for
part
sure.
two.